Hello everybody, and welcome as we once again play Kerbal Space Program, picking up from where we left off Tuesday night. Now, if you'll remember, Tuesday night we finished out a 2-hour stretch with completing 4 position satellite missions. Hmm. Okay, that one involves ensure the program. Let me see if Polar Orbiter 3 even has any fuel left. Yeah, it's actually got a lot of fuel left. So that one is very doable. First time I've actually seen one like that where it has me reposition a given satellite. Okay, so yeah, we'll go ahead and take that one. It actually ends up costing us nothing. Science data from around Minmus, that should actually be really easy. Okay, here's one of the story missions here. Exploring Ike. So we're going to go ahead and take that one. Okay, so the first thing that we need to do is get our Polar Orbiter 3 repositioned. Okay, let's figure out what this new orbit is going to look like. That's actually not even all that far off of what we're currently doing. So, first things first is we need to find a node here. Go ahead and warp there. And that is a descending node, so we're going to need to thrust normal to adjust our orbit. This shouldn't actually take too much. Nine degrees, 8 degrees. Yeah, we're going in the right direction. Two, one. Okay. Reach designated orbit around Kerbin. Maintain stability for 10 seconds. Okay, that one was of course just super easy. Okay, science data from space around Minmus. Let's go back to the Space Center. If you'll remember, we left our multi-explorer in orbit of Minmus. So we should be able to simply go in here and get the thermometer, log temperature, transmit, and there we go with that one as well. Okay, now comes the fun one, which is exploring Ike. Okay. Got a little bit of science for that one as well, so actually doing pretty good here. And of course, yeah, there's not really enough science there to spend on anything. There's not anything worthwhile at this point. Although we do have plenty of funding, so we could start looking at upgrading some of our facilities. Yeah, unknown object tracking comes in handy when you need to start grabbing asteroids. But that's a later on thing. Launch pad's fully upgraded. That sucker's not fully upgraded yet. Not going to bother with the space plane hangar right now, or for that matter the astronaut complex. And this one I'm not going to bother upgrading until I'm ready to start putting up science stations. So, first things first is we need to get an Ike Explorer built. Now, Ike is actually the next planet in, I want to say, from Kerbin. Let's take a look and make sure about that. No, that's Evie. Okay, zoom in on Evie. That's Gilly. Okay, so what is Ike? That's Duna, Moho. Ah, okay. Ike is Duna's moon. So, basically making a Mars moon landing here. Now, since we haven't even been to Duna yet, there's no guarantee that this is really going to be terribly doable, but the most important thing is that we need to be able to transmit back scientific data. So, we're going to need to be able to generate power. Unfortunately, we still don't have any of the better solar cells, so we're just going to have to deal with what we've got here. One there, one there. Going to go to single symmetry right now. Command and control, toss in some inlines. Let me see, I'm also going to need an antenna, which comes into the science. Okay. Pop that sucker on there. Actually, this may be a good time for me to consider using a communicatron. The actual full-size antenna. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and use that one here. And then I'm going to stick a mystery goo container on there and a thermometer. Then up here we're going to put that sucker because we want to get as much data as we can out of this one, since this one is going to be sitting still in the middle of nowhere afterwards. Turn that sucker around, plop it on there, and then stick on a nose cone. Okay. Next things next is the stack decoupler for down here. Now once again, we're going to need plenty of fuel for this one, but we're still going to use the Terrier for it. So what we probably really want to consider doing here is, come on, there we go. That, and then put the Terrier at the base of it. But this is actually going to take a lot more fuel than what we used just getting to Minmus. So our next boost stage, we're going to go for the quadrilateral symmetry here. Let's see. that sucker on there. And then go for fuel tanks again. Okay, and put that there, that there, and that there. And then we're going to add, let's see, I'm actually going to add 4 Reliance on there, because this is still going to be pretty low when we switch over to using those anyway. So okay, and we're also going to want some winglets to help us maintain stability. And now for the next part, which is going to be our solid rocket booster launch stages. And we're still dealing with only having the thumpers to work with on this point. Grabbed the wrong part there. I'm going to add in one more fuel tank here, just to make sure that we actually do have enough fuel when the time comes to be able to do this. Okay. It's not doing too terribly bad, but I'm going to add in the supports there, so I don't have to worry about her actually hitting the ground. Okay. So those suckers fire, then they let off, then those 4 there fire, then they're tossed off, then the Terrier fires, and of course I'm going to disable the staging on that one. I just have to remember to drop it off on my own. Okay. So, this is our Ike Explorer. And save. And yeah, let's go ahead and launch this thing. See what happens. And I know, as of right now, I completely and utterly forgot to add any structural supports to this, so this may be a very short flight. Yeah, you can already see it flopping around real bad. Come on now. Yeah, that's one of the reasons you really need the kickback. As its thrust capabilities are just so much better. Ugh. Hey, we might actually start accelerating again soon. Yay, we're accelerating again. And that would be the solid rocket boosters hitting the ground. Okay. We're apparently making a pretty good bit of headway now, too. Yeah, not too bad. Okay, I've used up about half of our liquid fuel from those 4 tanks, but we're actually making a decent amount of headway. Okay. Now we can really just point at prograde and let it kick as hard as possible. There we go. Okay. Yeah, our apoapsis is now taking us out of the atmosphere, which is certainly a nice thing. And soon we'll actually be exiting the atmosphere, which will be even nicer. And we're about to run out of fuel on this stage. At least she won't be nearly as floppy now. Okay, let's see what direction Duna is from us at this point. Figures. Okay. We might be able to get a gravity assist here, but we'll have to see exactly how that happens, how it plays out. The important thing at the moment is just making sure that we don't go slamming into the ground with our 1/3 G acceleration. So aim for the horizon and hope for the best, pretty much. Yeah. The biggest thing about trying for another planetary system here is that it's going to require a lot of fuel to get there because I'm going to have to completely break out of Kerbin's gravitational effect and then extend my orbit outward in order to intersect Duna, which can take a while, in all honesty. It's completely and utterly possible that this may be a multi-year mission. Fortunately, that particular contract doesn't actually expire since it's one of the story contracts. Okay. Might as well go ahead and set my target now. Yeah. One of the great things about having so much fuel is that you've actually got fuel to burn. One of the drawbacks is that you end up with a lot of weight. Okay, we have an actual orbit now. I'm going to keep on thrusting. I'm actually trying to extend my orbit out this way. And we'll see what kind of gravity assist we can get from various and sundry bodies. Yep, just keeping her pointed at the horizon. Doesn't help that the horizon keeps moving, but you know. Just the way it is some days. As our apoapsis keeps just getting pushed further and further away. And we have nearly half a G in actual thrust. Okay. 4,000,000. $6,000,000. 7, 8. I'm gonna start cutting back on the thrust a little bit here as our orbit starts to intersect with that of the Mun, and we'll see what kind of gravity assist we can hope to get out of that. Okay. And apparently the answer is none at the moment. So, just going to keep on thrusting, but we're going to be thrusting slow and steady. So we're not burning as much fuel, and if anything does decide to pop up, we can cut thrust real quick and then take a look at exactly what we might be able to do there. Because you never know when you might end up with a chance Mun encounter. Or for that matter, a chance Minmus encounter. We could end up with either at this point. Yeah, Duna's starting to come into view over here on the right. $22 million. Heading for Minmus. Our apoapsis is about halfway there. And currently 3.5 days away. And we are still thrusting slow and steady. Sad thing is we're actually losing speed at the moment. That's mainly because we're past periapsis and gravity is starting to slow us down a little bit. 30 million. Still thrusting strong. $35. $40. Yeah, that's minimum thrust right there. Yes, our orbit has passed that of Minmus. Any minute now we should be looking at an actual exit vector. Yes, we now have an escape vector, so let's see what kind of orbit that gives us. Not necessarily a bad one. But let's see what happens if we keep on thrusting like that. that actually continues to extend our orbit outward. We can actually get a pretty good approach there. So, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that and just keep on thrusting prograde, but just a little bit at a time. Because yeah, the escape's actually getting closer and closer all the time, since we're now adding more, well, kind of adding more speed. Now we're actually adding speed. Okay. The angle's actually not all that bad. With any luck, we should be able to finagle this into a Duna encounter fairly easily. Okay. Yeah. We're getting that closest approach down. Okay. No good there. So, let's go ahead and warp to our escape point here, which is only 4 days away. And then we can start looking at using exactly what kind of maneuvers we need, or figuring out what kind of maneuvers we need to use. Oh, come on. Okay. Now we have truly escaped. So we're going to need to see exactly what we need to do as far as getting that. Yeah, you see, that doesn't work. That's actually making it worse. So, there we go. That's bringing our approach a lot closer. Okay. As long as we can keep on bringing our approach closer, that's the important part there. Yeah. Okay. Let's see, we can bring that down to about 11,413 there. Of course, that's still 11 million kilometers off on that closest approach. And we are actually talking about a lot of thrust right now, but fortunately we still have a lot of fuel right now. So we can afford to burn pretty darned hard here. And just shift this whole orbit all the way around until we can actually get a true Duna intercept. that's still... Okay, now that's actually starting to bring it down some more too. So, yeah. See how finagling these two is really just the best option for getting it down a little bit more at a time. A little bit of retrograde, a little bit of twist, and we're slowly bringing our approach point closer together. Now, of course, I have absolutely no idea if we're actually going to have the fuel to make this happen. Yeah. Gotta be careful though. Okay. Ugh. Because you can see how many meters per second in this particular direction we're going to have to thrust in order to get it down to this point. Hey, we're down to less than 1,000,000 kilometers separation at this point, so we're not doing too terribly bad. But we just passed 2,000 meters per second that needs to be added to this orbit. Okay. Now that, according to this, will actually get us a Duna encounter some year off. So now that I know what direction I need to be thrusting in, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this maneuver and just start thrusting. But I am going to pin that so that I can keep an eye on it. And if it starts to do anything too terribly strange, yeah, it's gonna bounce back and forth all over the place for a little while here, from the looks of it. No, don't need to add any more retrograde to that apparently. There we go. Now we're getting a good... So one problem with eyeballing an orbit is you run the risk of having weird things happen. Such as what this poor thing is doing right now. Yeah, it's having to recalculate that in real time, which is never easy on it. Fortunately, I do still have the fuel to keep doing this. Okay. So as you can see, with huge orbits like this, it's a lot of finagling to get everything just right, so that you can be sure of a good intercept. Now, technically, I should be following a maneuver for this, but I'm just not bothering. Since I figured out pretty much what my thrust vector needs to be, I can then just thrust along these lines until it finally gives me a true encounter, and then I can warp to the encounter. Even though that encounter is going to be, you know, 222 days away at this rate. I think it actually turned out to be closer to 250 days in the maneuver planning. And of course, with how much I've already torqued this orbit around, I'm going to have to worry about um, possibly having more encounters with Kerbin if I'm not careful. But yeah, I'm thrusting almost exactly at the sun right now, just to get this orbit to do what I need it to do. I've got almost a G's worth of thrust, man. Okay, we're down to less than 1,000,000 kilometers on our closest approach. And it's nearly 250 days away. I'm going to cut thrust back a little bit so that when it does finally pop up an encounter, it won't be too weird or too short. $200,000 kilometers, 150, 100,000 kilometers, 50,000 kilometers, and we have an encounter. So, or do we? Okay, now we have an issue. Figure out what we need to do to Get that encounter back. There's no telling what minor gravitational influence may have caused that particular shift, but it is something you have to deal with from time to time. As you can see, you really only got to get just barely within 50,000 kilometers of the planet, and its gravity will take over. Or at least you enter its gravitational influence, and then you can use that to help you um, adjust on the other end. Okay, there we go. Let's go ahead and kick the time warp up here. And even under maximum time warp, this is still going to take a long time. And unfortunately, we're also going to be dealing with all sorts of power issues. So might as well turn the SAS off for a little bit here. But one thing I really cannot afford to do is completely and utterly lose power. So I'm going to have to keep the ship facing more or less perpendicular to the star as of right now. You have escaped the gravitational influence of the sun. Not sure how I did that. Okay. Let's see if we can... No, can't auto-warp that far because it's not actually in orbit anymore. But yeah, because of the positioning of the solar cells, if we get too far off angle, we'll end up losing power really well there. And we'll be truly screwed when it comes down to it. Okay, our Duna encounter is still 245 days away. Pin all of this, and yeah, there's too much there. Too much data to have to deal with. Okay. Go ahead and adjust again, just to keep us with a good sun angle here, so we can be assured of maximum power generation at the moment. Now with any luck, we'll have like a day in between Duna encounter and Duna escape. Otherwise we'll end up with plenty of trouble just trying to adjust this orbit to the point where we can actually orbit Duna. Okay, Duna encounter is 9 days away, Duna escape is 10 days, 4 hours. We'll have just under a day to actually adjust our orbit, so that's really not too bad. Okay, still can't auto-warp to there. Duna encounter is 4 hours away. There we go. Okay, now for the fun part. Literally have to get ourselves to the point where we are orbiting Duna. And that maneuver is on the wrong bloody orbit. So, apparently that's going to be my closest approach to Duna. You know what? Never mind. I'm going to need to do this the hard way for a little while. Okay, apparently I haven't actually encountered Duna yet. Joy. There we go. Ugh. Bloody thing. Okay. Now, let's figure out what we need to do to turn this into a proper orbit. Looks like it's mainly just going to be brute forcing it at retrograde for a little while. There we go. That should actually help to bend it around a good bit. See if I can't find Ike here. Oh yeah, it's still way in there towards Duna. Figures. I'm going to have to get a proper orbit before I'm even going to be able to hope to get that. I'm actually going to go ahead and warp to the periapsis there and then just thrust retrograde like all get out. And it should help me to bring the um, the exit around. Because yeah, that's Duna, that's Ike. Those two tiny little specks 40 million meters away. And of course we've achieved another benchmark here. First flyby of Duna. Escape the gravitational influence of Duna. We must have skipped out of orbit to start with there. That's why we ended up with a weird encounter thing going on. I'm actually falling behind periapsis here. Okay. Still thrust in retrograde. And I am actually gaining some time. I'm actually gaining a lot of time on that Duna escape. About every second of thrust is buying me a minute away from the escape. So, That's actually not bad at all. As you can see, that's actually getting further and further away from me, while it's also getting closer to the planet itself. So, doing pretty good. It's just it's going to take us a while, and I don't want to use too much fuel right now. Although, let me see. I haven't achieved orbit yet. Oh, I haven't even achieved orbit around Ike. Never mind. Okay. That actually seems to be doing me a lot better there. So, yeah, we'll keep this up for a little bit and see if we can't use a thrust vector like that to help pull ourselves into a good Duna orbit. There it is. Yeah. So set that as my target. And as soon as we actually have an orbit around, ooh, that's gonna suck. I'm going the wrong way. Figures. Yeah, my orbit's gonna be totally off from Ike's. The chances of actually encountering it at anything even remotely approaching a good speed is going to be nearly impossible. Joy. Because it's going this way, and I'm going to be going that way. As soon as I actually manage to get a true frigging orbit here. Oh, come on already. Give me a break. This is definitely going to take a while. Come on already. Yeah, I don't think I'm actually going to have enough fuel to pull this one off. At which point, if nothing else, I can always just have a nice probe orbiting the sun. Now, let's see what the current orbit calls for there. Yeah, just a little bit off. Not too terribly bad. Okay, I'm actually going to try one more time at periapsis to at least get an orbit around Duna here. Oh, come on. Give me a break here, man. And nope, we're not even going to have enough fuel to pull this one off. Because that is the end of our fuel supply. And of course I also completely and utterly forgot to decouple that, which may have cost us at least most of this. But hey, let's see what we've got here. Yeah, that's worth 43.8 science. And that's done. So, next thing is mystery goo, which is worth another 15. and then temperature, which is actually worth another 20 from right there. So yeah, I actually ended up with a decent amount of science from that, even though technically the mission was a failure. And this sucker is going to end up simply orbiting um, the sun for a while there. Although it may have another Duna encounter eventually. It may even have a really nasty Duna encounter eventually. And first milestone, so at least we got some rewards from this mission, even though it was just a monumental waste of time. It also taught us pretty much what we needed to know, and that is that we don't have enough thrust out of our current engine tech and our current fuel resources. So we definitely need a little bit more engine to make this whole thing work. Fortunately now, we actually have the science to be able to do that. So we'll get a little bit more engine out of that, and we'll try it again. But unfortunately, not tonight. So I hope you guys have enjoyed seeing me fail to explore Ike. Tomorrow night we'll be building a brand new Ike Explorer. So I hope to see you guys then. Should have the video up on YouTube in about an hour, and that'll have the links so you can follow us on Patreon or Twitter or like our page on Facebook. Have a good night, guys. Bye.